Welcome back, everybody, to the Executing the Edge YouTube channel. I'm your host, Nick Hub. You can find me at Nick Hub Sports. I have a very special guest with me today. He's a pro capper at Wager Talk and host at the Hustle Show Pod, which is getting a lot of attention lately. We have Adam Trigger at Top Flight SI. How we doing, Adam?
I'm doing good, Nick. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking some games with you.
Absolutely. We got what a hell of a time of the year, right? We got a couple weeks here. We have this week and next week. It really amps up with everything. And then the big dance right after that. So I want to talk a little bit about the Missouri Valley Conference, Arch Madness, right? We're taping this on Thursday. The first games are today. This conference tournament typically goes towards the under. In this conference, it's 66-37 to the under in recent games. Loyola and Bradley are the only two schools to win this conference championship in the past 4 years. Now we have Loyola, who is the favorite at plus 160. Missouri State is plus 280 right now. And yesterday, when I played Missouri State, I believe they were plus 500 or 480. I believe
that definitely you're not wrong about that. That definitely got hit a couple times because I saw 450, 400, and it looks like both of those are gone. But I think you made a good bet because that's actually who I like here to win this tournament as well. So
good deal. Well, we'll get right into it.
This Missouri State team has been disappointing me for 3 years. I think at this point, so maybe this is the year where they finally just put it together, get into the tournament, maybe cover some of these games in the conference tournament.
It's going to be a fun bracket. It's kind of wide open here between I would say the top 5 teams. Northern Iowa's the other one. Drake and Bradley. Bradley has a chance with their defense. Just to give some why it's so wide open, Northern Iowa swept Missouri State this season. Drake swept Loyola, Bradley swept Drake, and then Missouri State swept Drake and Bradley. So everybody's beating up on everybody. What's your take on the conference here? Or if you want to get into the games for tonight or for today, we can do that first.
Yeah, I mean, I love this conference. Year in and year out, it's one of my favorites. And I also love that they utilize this first weekend because the Missouri Valley, to me, doesn't feel like a mid-major. I mean, it is those are mid-major schools, if you will, but this conference feels far more big time to me than most of the other conferences that play this weekend. And then, you had a couple I went to Siena, obviously a big, fan of Siena, and I follow the MAC closely. For whatever reason, they moved their conference tournament to the following weekend, which I hated that move because it gets them lost in the shuffle with a lot of these other conferences. The thing I love about the Missouri Valley tournament is it kind of stands alone. Yeah, you've got to compete with the sort of the big teams finishing up their regular season, but it kind of sits alone with a couple of the others on this weekend to open up conference tournament season, if you will. But in this particular year too, I mean, this is as strong as the Missouri Valley has been in a while. I think so. I'll throw this out there. I would fade Bradley in the tournament, but I really do think that the top 4, Northern Iowa, Missouri State, Loyola Chicago, and Drake, it all have a very good chance to win. It really could come out of any of those 4. And I just based on the price, I think now, as we spoke about at the top of the show, it's drifted a little bit. But man, when that was out there, Missouri State at 4-1, that would have been the best sort of futures bet I see. Like I said, I think it's their year. I do think they're the best team. It's just a matter of can they put it together, and that always tends to be their issue. So I guess we'll see.
Right? Would you agree Loyola's a little overpriced here? I realize they're coming into the tournament, maybe playing the best as far as point differential, but maybe a little bit inconsistent towards the end of the year too, with these other teams lying in the weeds. They're also on the upper bracket is definitely the tougher side, in my opinion. We have Northern Iowa, and then we have Loyola and Bradley, which should be a decent game. And then Missouri State and Drake are the leaders in the bottom bracket there.
To be honest with you, I really think one. So the reason I agree with you with Loyola being overvalued, because I almost see 1 through 4 being like equals in this tournament. And Drake's down there at 3, but Drake had to deal with injuries for a large portion of their season early in conference play that they've sort of gotten over to this point. So they might be a little bit undervalued. And then you could make a case that Northern Iowa getting the 1 seed, but they're, I think, probably the 3rd or 4th sort of in the prices. I haven't seen where they're at now, but at least where they were at like a day or 2 ago. So you could argue they're overvalued or undervalued as well, though it feels like, I don't know, for whatever reason, like Northern Iowa, their defense concerns me a little bit. I feel like, but man, if AJ Green gets hot, they're really good. This should be a great tournament. I really think 1 through 4. I think this is as evenly matched of a 1 through 4, and they're all good teams. Like they're all quality teams that you're going to find in any of these conference tournaments here outside of like the Power 5.
Right, I agree. Northern Iowa right now is plus 500. Drake is plus 650. So yeah, there's some good value there. Do you want to get into the game tonight at 6:00? Illinois State and Indiana State. You have a take on this game? You have a lean?
Yeah, I do. I just wanted to find it in the odd screen so I can make sure I'm referencing current numbers. But I like Indiana State here, and I'll have to say, like, so I did a lot of I wrote a lot of I kind of did analysis coming into the season. Play on teams versus play against teams of what I thought. I gave out a couple per conference coming into the season, and Indiana State was a play against for me. Complete changing of the guard there. Greg Lansing out, bringing a guy from D2 that I didn't know a ton about, and I thought he would have been sort of in over his head in the first season there in Terre Haute. And Indiana State has been better. Quite a bit better than I expected them to be. And they come in this game, you kind of look at the market right now, seems to be tilted toward Illinois State. Yet there's definitely money coming in on Indiana State here. So, just kind of based on those 2 factors and the fact that Indiana State has definitely sort of exceeded my expectations to this point in the season as far as what I expected them to be this year, I think the wrong team might be favored in that one. I'm looking right now. It looks like Illinois State is -1. I would actually make Indiana State the favorite there ever so slightly. And so, yeah, that would be the way I would go in that game would be Indiana State +1. Just think they're the better team. And on a neutral court, they probably get it done.
Good deal. I'll talk about the other game here that's 8:30 tonight Eastern. Valpo and Evansville. So Valpo took both games this season, winning by 5 and 16. These are 2 bad teams. However, Evansville has clearly given up on the season, losing 7 of their last 7 games of the last 7 of their games in the regular season. They own a negative 21.7 point differential in their last 3 games, and they're shooting just 39% from the field, while giving up 55% on defense in their last 5. So that's clearly a team, in my opinion, that has just given up on the season. Valpo has been shooting 48% in their last 5. Should have their way on offense with this Evansville defense, specifically inside the arc, where Valpo scores most of their points, and Evansville ranks 338th in the nation in defending the 2-point shot. Full disclosure, I grabbed this at -5.5. I believe it's still there in some spots. I think it went up to 6 in some as well. But I like Valpo tonight. I'll give that one out on the show here. And anything to add to that, Trig? We can get into the next tournament here.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I definitely Missouri State is the side I'm kind of looking at being the, obviously a lot can change, and I'm not even saying that I wouldn't be willing to bet against them if I was getting the right number, but like just going into the tournament, and then obviously seeing that dip from 5 to 1, I think down to like plus 250. I feel like there's some people that agree with me. That's kind of the side I've got circled here in the Missouri Valley. Would be Missouri State.
Okay, good deal. The next conference tournament we want to get into here is the Big South. Let me pull up my notes on the Big South real quick. Do you have any leans? While I pull that up, do you have any leans in this conference here?
Yeah, I talked about this on the Hustle last night, and it looks like the Big South tournament was in play yesterday. And on our show, I talked about the Campbell Camels being a team that I thought that they could have won that conference coming into the season. And that was another thing I kind of wrote about entering the season was, Campbell's probably got the best team that they've ever had at that school. And the expectations were kind of almost through the roof for them. And I thought someone could potentially dethrone Winthrop this year. And I just want to get the regular season standings up here. And that did happen, but it didn't happen by Campbell. It was actually Longwood that went 15-1 and won the Big South regular season. Winthrop actually, to me, looked like they had they were significantly down from where I expected them to be. And yet here they are, 14-2 in conference, 21-8 overall. So even in a down year, it looks like they're still a contender. But, Campbell ended up in that opening round game last night. And I just thought, okay, this is a team where they definitely didn't achieve their goal as far as the regular season is concerned, right? And they kind of lost 3 of 4 to close the regular season. But, in conference tournaments, the slate is clean, right? Like you could throw anything that's happened throughout the season out. And if you're in one of these smaller conferences, especially, it's all about what you do this weekend, right? Like you can rattle off 3-4 wins, you're going to the NCAA tournament. So I thought Campbell, I actually said, look to bet on them in Friday's game when they're probably undervalued, because last night they were laying points to Presbyterian. They end up getting it done in 2 overtimes. They didn't cover though, which we kind of just talked about it. They were laying 4.5. They won by 3. Now I actually think they've got some momentum. I think they're probably undervalued, and they play a Gardner-Webb team that everyone seems to love this year, right? Like they're kind of the team that for whatever reason, everyone fell in love with Gardner-Webb for a while in the Big South. And for me, like Gardner-Webb, I don't have them as a team that's going to come out of the Big South and represent that conference in the NCAA tournament. So this is a Friday game. So I don't know, depending on when when you see this, and there's no line out for this yet, but at least not that I know of, I haven't seen one yet, but the Gardner-Webb and Campbell, they only played once during the year, and Gardner-Webb kind of embarrassed them. They held them to 45 points. The final was 57-45, and it was not Campbell's best effort. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I kind of far from it. I think last night's game gives Campbell a little momentum. So I would look to back Campbell, especially if the number is favorable in that game on Friday. It's a Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern game against Gardner-Webb. And honestly, if Campbell, that's a team I would ride in this tournament. If they can pull the upset there, I'd probably take them the next round as well, because I think that that was a team that I thought would be in one of the top spots in this tournament at the beginning of the year. It didn't pan out that way, but they still have the offensive talent. And it's really just going to be if their defense can kind of sustain that intensity. I think a nice OT win last night will give them potentially some momentum to do so. Yeah,
well, they're plus 1,600 when the tournament started. Longwood, the favorite. Winthrop right after that at plus 200. Longwood just capped its best regular season, and they have never won the conference tournament. And really, there's not many teams that have won this tournament. Winthrop has won 3 of the last 5, including the last 2, and then have won 12 Big South tournament championships since 1999. So they really rule the Big South.
They absolutely do. And I'll throw one more thing out there kind of in support of Campbell. Campbell closed the regular season with Longwood. They led at halftime and they lost by 5. It was a game that they probably, a couple things go their way, they probably could have won. So, and they're kind of the top dog as far as that tournament is concerned, maybe with Winthrop there. So I think Campbell is a team that is going to be undervalued come tomorrow against Gardner-Webb. And if they can pull the upset, I think I would continue to ride them into the weekend.
Okay. There we go. I don't have much more to say on this conference. We can get into your conference, Treg. We can get into the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference where you reside, or where you did reside.
Yeah, so I still live in the area. I still live in the Albany area, and that's definitely. I graduated from Siena College. I've lived here my whole life essentially, so I've been kind of in tune with this conference since I was a kid. Yeah. All I'll say about this conference tournament specifically is there's definitely value in opposing Iona, and the reason I say that is Iona, they ended up losing 2 regular season games, and they looked more beatable during the regular season than I expected they would. Siena was one of the teams that beat them. I believe Niagara was the other. They actually have a tough game tonight, and that's one of the games I was going to kind of talk about for like a best bet. One of the sides that's on my short list tonight is Manhattan. They're getting 10 points. They host Iona tonight, and that's just I just have to wonder how much Iona cares about these last 2 regular season games. They already have the MAC regular season wrapped up. They're clearly going to look ahead to the tournament. Now, I'm not saying that Iona's not going to win that conference tournament, but if you were going to take a shot, I think you would potentially do it with Siena or St. Peter's, because they're the teams that are going to end up in that 2-3 game. And you could call this a homer take if you want. I think Siena's a better team than St. Peter's. Siena's also beat Iona already this season. Yeah. And I like a change that Siena made maybe about a month ago, where they really slowed things down. So Andrew Plattick, North Carolina transfer, he's a local guy as well, transferred back to Siena, and he blew out his like MCL or he season-ending injury like 5 games into the season. Okay. And Siena really had a hard time ball handling after that. But they've got some young guys, a bunch of transfers. They had a really kind of not a great run earlier in the year, but they've really slowed down the offense. And not only has it helped them, but Iona does not want to play against slow. They just don't. Like that's totally counterintuitive to how Rick Pitino likes to play and how he wants the athletes on the Iona team to play. So it was not surprising to me that Iona struggled with Siena the second time they played, because Siena had completely changed their sort of tempo and style of play to that point. Now, that brings us to tonight. Manhattan is a team that will do that as well. They like to kind of scrap games, see Masiello's defense first. They'll play very ugly basketball, but that's like their thing. And they were actually, I think they lost to Iona at Iona earlier this year by 12. But, Manhattan's always kind of been better at home. They play in this terrible gym. Dratty Gymnasium is awful. I've been there before. It has bad lighting. It's like teams just don't really care to play there. And Iona Manhattan's, it's kind of a rivalry. Iona's about maybe 20, 25 minutes north of the city. Okay. So tonight, I kind of probably jumped ahead. This is what I was going to save for best bets, but Manhattan plus 10 is probably a good bet tonight, because I could really see them kind of scrapping that game and turning it into a really ugly game, which would make it difficult for Iona to win by margin. And Iona just I don't think they have a huge motivation to just go on the road and just crush someone. I think they're trying to go in there, do what they got to do, get out with a win. These last 2 games just don't have a huge I don't think they mean a ton to Iona. I think they could extend their rotation. They're probably going to play more guys, probably worried about keeping people healthy for the MAC tournament. And then as far as the MAC tournament's concerned, I would take a shot with Siena. I think I think numbers wise, you either take a shot with them or someone at the bottom, because that's the other thing. The way the MAC works is kind of like, it's like the 10th best team can beat Iona. Like, they all beat each other, and you throw them on a neutral. Yeah, you throw them on a neutral floor and anything can happen. So maybe just a bomb like Fairfield or Marist or something like that.
Okay. Good deal. Well, there's some big games this weekend, and don't feel bad throwing out your best bet, because I did that with Valpo. So we'll just throw them out there when we think of them. But I want to get into some big games for the weekend here to discuss a little bit. We'll start with Texas and Kansas. Now, Ken Palm has this Kansas favored by 6. Both teams are coming off a loss. Kansas is coming off of 2 losses, both on the road. KU at the Fog is plus 15.5 point differential, and Texas is -2 on the road this season. KU is 14-1 straight up at home, but only 8-7 ATS, and Texas is just 3-7 ATS on the road this season. Any takes on this one?
Well, Nick, I was at the Kansas Baylor game last weekend in Waco, and I have to say, I'm sitting there at the game with Chris Thurston, and him and I watched the first Baylor Kansas meeting this year together. And if you remember that game, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, Kansas went up 20 and never looked back. They just ran them out. And surprisingly, that's actually probably the last big win Kansas has had, right? Because after that, they lost to Texas. So you're going to have, there's some revenge potential built in for Kansas here. They played sort of 4 teams toward the bottom: Kansas State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. So they beat those 4 teams. But I have to say, they came out in the Baylor game and it looked like they were going to go up 20. And they got very complacent. They started taking bad shots. A couple different times they came down and fired up a 3 in transition that was completely just not a shot you would want in that scenario, especially up 11 or 12. And Baylor got back in the game, ran them out in the second half, and then they got crushed by TCU the other day. So something I talked about on Hustle was, I'm curious how much Kansas cares right now. You got to remember, you're getting to the end of the season. These are still kids, right? The season starts to wear on these guys. And I saw really uninspired effort from Kansas the last 2 games. Now, it's going to be interesting what happens tonight, because Kansas plays TCU tonight. And if they come out and pound TCU, then you might not get a great number to back them on Saturday against Texas.
Right.
If Kansas struggles tonight, I think they might potentially look ahead. Texas is a big game. Texas beat them the first meeting. So I would kind of have Kansas circled here as this being the game they want. Texas has not done it for me all season. That's not a team that's impressed me. They'd be more of a fade for me. So the way I look at this one, I'd be looking to back Kansas if I get the right number, the right scenario.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had Texas when they played Baylor this week, and that was a good game until the very end. They kind of, Baylor just took over and won and covered. But I thought that was a good spot with Texas barely escaping to West Virginia, and Baylor just beating up on Kansas the game before. But this could be a revenge game here. Texas won 79-76. Kansas shot 58% from the field, 38% from 3, but only 65% from the line. Texas shot 41% from the field, 15% from 3, and 87% from the line. Kansas lost this game due to turnovers. They turned the ball over 15 times compared to Texas only turning it over 6 times. So,
yeah, well, I'll just leave it at, if Kansas comes out and demolishes TCU tonight, then you might see a number that's worth getting involved with Texas. The number may sort of favor Texas in that scenario. I don't know if the spot does, being as it's on the road, on the road at Kansas. But if Kansas comes out and just blasts TCU tonight, then you're definitely probably going to find some value on the Longhorns.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into the next game here. Arkansas, Tennessee. These are both Saturday games. Ken Palm has this one, Tennessee favored by 6. Arkansas has won 5 straight, 14 of the last 15. Clearly look like a team to ride in the SEC tourney and big dance at this point. Tennessee's won 3 straight and have won 8 out of 9, with their only loss in that stretch to the Razorbacks. So this could be a revenge spot for Tennessee, as Arkansas won 58-48 in a low-scoring game February 19th. Arkansas shot 30%. Tennessee just shot 27%, which in turn had a lot of rebounds for each team, over 40 rebounds for both teams there. What's your take on this one, Adam?
Man, Nick, I bet Arkansas 80-1 to win the national championship. Like maybe right. I think I bet it after they beat Tennessee, or maybe like right before they beat Tennessee.
Okay.
I think it's down to like 45-1 now. I love this Arkansas team. However, I just have to wonder if they've got to have a flat spot at some point, right? Like they can't. It's unrealistic to think they can just win big game after big game after big game. You go back to last night, and they find a way to win again and beat LSU. That's Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, LSU, all in succession. Now, they haven't. So the Kentucky game, of course, has been kind of played over and over. The fact that they didn't cover, depending on what number you got, they didn't cover with a Kentucky half-court shot, and they didn't cover last night. And I noticed something last weekend. Like Tennessee, the odds makers are giving them they must be giving a ton of points to the number for Tennessee at home. Like, because I did not expect them to come out and be a 3-point favorite against Auburn last week, but they were, and they covered. Yeah. So, you got a nice revenge angle here for Tennessee. But what I think is going to happen is, people are going to see Tennessee 15-0 at home. And I think the odds makers are going to shade it, knowing that people are going to want to back Tennessee in this spot. And you actually might get a decent price on Arkansas, who has now failed to cover 2 games in a row. With that being said, can they just keep winning and winning and winning these big games? That is where the spot comes into question. It'll be hard for me to get to the window with either of these teams, because I think Arkansas is the better team, and I'm as high on them as I am on just about any team in the country right now. But Tennessee, I just think we'll get priced out by the odds makers, forcing us to lay way too much of a premium to back Tennessee at home.
Yeah, I agree. If it comes out 6, I think that's way too high.
Yeah.
Tennessee's plus 19 at home, but Arkansas is 6-2 ATS on the road this season, so not a horrible road team.
And they just keep winning. Like it seems to not matter, right? Like it's a big game, flat spot, doesn't matter. They come out, beat Kentucky, beat Tennessee, find a way to beat LSU. It's just, and this has been going on all year. I think that if you go back like 2 weeks, they did it to Florida, right? Like they came in, it looked like just like the consummate flat spot for Arkansas. Nope, they roll right into Gainesville, blow Florida out, no problem. So it's just been like, they've been just a ticket cashing machine. I certainly don't want to bet against them. I think, if you get the right number, maybe you do go for Arkansas this week.
Right. And one thing to keep in mind, too, it's not the postseason yet, but Tennessee head coach Rick Barnes is 22-38-3 ATS in the postseason since 2006. So something to keep in mind going forward here. But so we'll see what that line comes out at. But I think we both would favor Arkansas if it comes out -6.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the next game. Alabama, LSU. LSU's coming off that loss to Arkansas. And Alabama is also coming off of a loss. So both teams coming off a loss. LSU's playing better than the Tide, and their home court has been great. Plus 19.8 this season. LSU is 12-4 ATS, while Bama's just 2-7 ATS on the road this season. And this could be a revenge spot for LSU too, so that adds to it.
Revenge spot and a need, big time need for LSU. Like, I mean, they need to win a game. Like, they've been, it's nice that they've covered the last couple games and they've cashed tickets for bettors against Kentucky and against Arkansas, but the selection committee doesn't care that they cover spreads, right? Like, they need to win games, and I don't think that they can really afford to just go into the SEC tournament on what would it be like, maybe like a 5-game losing streak at this point. Yeah. So if they lose this game, so LSU needs to win. I mean, Alabama kind of in the same boat. They just got obliterated by Texas A&M last night.
Not a great team.
No, and I think that's like the biggest kind of takeaway that I had from last night's game. Alabama is just so last year. This team seemed to be able to like put teams away with like they would have that run where they'd hit a barrage of threes and all of a sudden they're up 16 and they put teams away. This year, 298th 3-point shooting. They hit 31.3% as a team. That's a big problem for a Nate Oates coach team where he basically wants you taking a three or getting to the rim. He kind of just hates the mid-range jumper. So to me, Alabama has that. They lack that like kind of ability to put teams away. And then they're awful in late game situations. They turn it over. They miss foul shots. They just don't close out games. So Alabama's a team. It depends on what the number is here. Like, they're a team at this point. I guess I'd looked like, so I bet them a couple weeks ago against Kentucky as a dog. Felt like I kind of took a little bit of a bad beat there. They kind of, they were 7.5-point dog. They lost by 9. They led most of the first half, and they were right in that game. They're a team that I'd be willing to get involved with as a dog. As a favorite, I'm just not trying to back Alabama at this point. And in this spot, man, LSU, it's just, I don't know if I'll be able to get involved in this game because I had this circled. So I took Alabama in the first meeting between these two teams. I laid 3.5. Alabama had a 13-point lead. They missed 3 wide open threes to go up 16. And all of a sudden LSU had that cut to like a 1-point game. Alabama missed like 5 free throws at the end and 1 by 3 failed to cover. So I circled this and said, okay, next time these two teams play, Alabama will be the way I'm going to look because they kind of should have won that game by more. But I actually think Alabama has gotten worse since the first time these two teams have played. So this is be a tough one for me to get to the window with. But man, LSU kind of needs this game. And, if they're catching points, that's probably might be the way to look here, but tough to figure out, tough to know what this spread will be.
It is. And it's amazing that Bama, that's what they do. They shoot threes and they depend on offensive rebounding on second chance points. They're not a good shooting team. But that's what they do. So they do have the advantage in this game with offensive rebounding. So that could help them. But LSU lost this game last time because they fouled 24 times compared to 10 for Bama. 30, and go ahead.
One other big thing, Xavier Pinson did not play in this game the first time around. He's back. LSU is a much better team when he's on the floor.
Yep. Good point. Yeah, so 32 free throws compared to 15. That's a big difference in a 3-point game. So we'll move on to the next game here. And Iowa, this will be the last game we talk about here. Iowa and Illinois. This is a Sunday game, both off of a win. Iowa won 4 straight and 7 of its last 8. They're playing well, while Illinois is coming in playing decent. 3-3 in their last 6. Illinois 11-3 straight up at home, but just 10-9 ATS. They have not played each other this season. What's your take on this one here, Trey?
So I think these two teams did play way earlier in the year.
Did they? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I think they played way earlier in the year. I want to say Illinois won the game by like 4 or 5. And yeah, I remember the game. I think it was like a Friday night game. Illinois kept Iowa kept making a run at Illinois. Illinois would go up like 7. Iowa would cut it to 2. and then Illinois finally just like put them away at the end. So both these teams play tonight. So it's actually it'll be difficult for me to have like a strong opinion on this game until I see what happens tonight. Illinois has a home game against Penn State that they should win. Iowa in a revenge spot against Michigan on the road. I've never been a huge Iowa road guy, although I do kind of like them tonight. Iowa's a team I followed closely for years because Fran McCaffrey was the head coach at Siena when I was there, and he left after his 3-year run of taking Siena to the NCAA tournament. He left to take over Iowa. He's been there ever since. So I follow Iowa closely every year, kind of just because of that. And I did not expect Iowa to be this good this year. I thought this was going to be a big time down year for Iowa, and they have far exceeded my expectations. With that being said, I'm also probably higher on Illinois than most. They were like the one future I bet before the season and gave out was Illinois at 25-1. Who knows? You may even be able to get them better than that now. I don't think they've panned out the way that many thought, but I still think Illinois is dangerous. And if Illinois, so if you go back to Sunday when they beat Michigan, that is what I kind of expected to see out of Illinois all season. Like Coburn being so dominant that teams just leave open shooters and Illinois just knocks down shots. Now they haven't done that.
They couldn't miss.
They couldn't miss against Michigan.
Yeah.
And if they're going to shoot it like that, they're going to be very, very tough to beat. And that's like, I guess you go back to the first meeting. Iowa, the defense still concerns me a little bit, even though they've been like I said, they far exceeded my expectations. Yeah. I didn't think they matched up particularly well with Illinois in the first meeting. So I would probably lean to Illinois here, but a lot of it's going to depend on what happens in these two games. I don't think this is a really like hot take here. You're probably going to get a bunch of points. It seems like these two can just score on each other. I mean, the first meeting had 170 points, I think, and I would not be surprised if we saw a pretty high scoring affair in this one.
Yeah, these are both top 100 teams shooting the 3 and 2. So overall, they're good shooting teams. Illinois got the better defense, like you said. So, and they're playing at home. It'll be interesting to see what the number comes out at. But you're right. They did. This game was a 4-point game in the last time that they did play, which was earlier in the season. So I appreciate for coming on here, Trig. That's the last game we have here. Let everybody know where they can find you. We went a little bit over, but
that's all right. That's like Kelly. I get yelled at for going over on like every show that I do, so it's nothing new there. You can find me at Wager Talk, which is at Wager Talk on Twitter. You can also find me on my personal Twitter page at Top Flight SI. All my stuff's up on Wager Talk. Pretty easy to find once you're there. But yeah, best bet for tonight we'll leave you with is Manhattan +10. We broke it down earlier in the show. And hopefully that gives you guys some insight on a couple games coming up this weekend. And yeah, hopefully Missouri, for our sake, hopefully we cash Missouri State at a nice number this weekend.
Absolutely. And like I said in the beginning, you can find me at Nick Hub Sports and at this sportspickhub.com, at theoddsbreakers.com, among others. Also check out sportswageringu.com. We're currently previewing every single conference tournament. So check that out. Some in written form, or all in written form, some in video. And there'll be a lot more leading up to the big dance. So check that out. And thanks again, Triggs, for coming on. We appreciate it. And talk to you soon, man.
Take it.